Hello. It's time. Oh, wait, Mora, you
Mm.
can hear her, but you won't be able to see her because I didn't answer the call in here. Join video call. Mute. Pop out. Focus. There's Mora.
Hello, everyone.
Let me
I'm
change this
here.
here. All right. There we go.
Are we good?
Yes.
How you doing,
Hey, Stephanie's here.
Stephanie?
Yeah,
Sorry you
Stephanie,
can't stay the whole time.
stay as long as you can, Stephanie.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you for however many minutes you can spare before bedtime. I understand.
Yeah, trust
My
me.
bedtime is like 10 o'clock, so if I was starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'd be,
Yeah. I think
yeah.
Stephanie's in Central Time, so she has a little bit less to complain. But I think she also has a real job. But I just have to get up and
Like a
drive kids to
sucker.
school. Yeah.
Like us suckers having real jobs.
Yeah.
Yup. How you
I
doing,
am.
Bobby?
I'm doing all right. I had something I wanted to ask you about.
Mm.
Do you have any? Well, let me preface this by saying I have a real. I have. There are lots of, pet peeves. We all have pet peeves.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my pet peeves is when people say, "Not gonna lie." When they
Cause
start,
like,
when they preface something with, "I'm not
not
gonna
gonna
lie."
lie.
I'm not gonna lie, but like, cause I'm just like, I didn't think you were gonna lie,
Should
but
I be suspecting
but now
lies?
maybe I do. Do you normally lie to me? Like,
I guess it's more like I feel like you say that when you're about to kind of admit something. Not gonna lie, but I love pineapple on pizza. You
but
know,
I think
like
that's
you're
a
a little
better
afraid
usage
that
of it. You're
people
right, and that's a somewhat acceptable. But now people just say it whenever they're saying something that they want to emphasize. Like they just use it for emphasis. Like
okay.
like I'm not gonna lie, that chocolate cake was delicious. Like, why would you lie about that? In the
That's
first place.
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that one in particular. I wouldn't call it a pet peeve though.
I notice it every time someone says it. It's funny.
Oh no. I know, I'm certain I've said it around you and now I'm very self-conscious.
Pretty much everyone I know has said it, so it's
It
people. We all say things that annoy each other, and that's why we all have.
happens.
We just ignore it. Bobby's an
Indeed.
hour later than me. Just want to go to bed. Oh, yeah, Stephanie. That's what I'm saying. Is you don't. You should just put up with. Like I have to be up until like 11 or almost midnight tonight. Um, but I'm just kidding. You go to bed when you need to go to bed.
We used to start this even later
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I had to put my kids to bed and yeah, but yeah, we tried to work it out because Bobby would be in pretty rough shape by the end.
Sometimes I would be. Or yeah,
Yeah.
some of the shows we would do, we would like I put every ounce of juice I have left into it, right? And so I'd keep
Mhm.
this upbeat kind of mood that I have right now, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we would stop recording and then I would just stop talking and
You just like melt.
my
You just
face
be
would
like,
just slack and I'd be like,
yeah.
"All right, are we done?"
Okay, see ya.
Yeah. Do you have any pet peeves?
I do. It's funny because I have several that drive me crazy all the time, but now I can't think of it. So, you know what? It'll come up, I'm sure.
Stephanie
It's driving
says,
me crazy.
Stephanie
I
said,
can't think
I
about it.
mean, I'm not going to lie. I sleep like garbage. Uh,
Sleep like garage. I sleep
yeah.
like garage, so it wouldn't make a difference either way. You're tired, Stephanie. I get it. You
Yeah.
keep sleeping like garage, so you wrote the wrong thing.
How would a garage sleep?
Mm,
I'm not coming up
I
with
was trying
anything.
to think of a joke, but the
Yeah, it's
time has
not coming.
passed.
It's not
The
coming.
joke the joke range has passed.
Uh,
what's the joke range, do you think, after someone says something? How
well,
long do you have
hmm.
before you can make a joke
Well,
that's not a
there's
callback?
definitely there's definitely a max, right?
Mhm.
Which is if the conversation, if people have moved on to talk about something else.
Yeah.
You can't be like,
And
oh
you're
wait, hold
like,
on,
"Like garage!"
yeah, hold on, I want to make a joke about that thing we were just talking about.
Wait, back up. You know what I should have said
Yeah.
right after you said that other thing?
Did you see that Seinfeld episode where they kept coming up with like George kept coming up with
No.
things to he kept like coming up with like comebacks to things that people would say um later, and then he'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
like, he'd be mad because he should have said that.
Stephanie says 6.39 seconds.
Oh,
Anything after that is too long.
wow.
I assume you are making a joke, Stephanie. However, that is a really long time. Try in a regular conversation with someone to pause for 3 full seconds.
Hold on, let's do it now. Let's do 6 full seconds. Ready? I'm saying something now, and and then I'm gonna, when I stop talking, that's when it stops, and you're
Wait.
trying to think of a joke, and we'll see how long that feels. Okay, ready?
Okay,
And
I'm gonna start a stopwatch when you stop talking.
all right, ready? I'm stopping now. Yeah, that was definitely
I
too long.
can't. I just started laughing at partway through because it felt so absurd.
That was definitely too
People
long.
probably stopped their recording because they're like, "That's too long." I had when I was training to be a teacher, that was one of the challenges to try to stop talking for 3 seconds in front of a
Hmm.
class,
Yep. Well,
and
that's one of the techniques
it's very hard.
that I would teach people um when I was talking about teaching, right? Like I used to be the head of the training department at the
Mm,
corporate job that I had. And so when I was teaching people how to do training, and you're trying to teach different concepts of, it was all an insurance company, and so trying to teach concepts to new hires and stuff like that. And I would say, like,
mhm.
when you ask a question, don't you just ask it and wait, because someone will say something. Like, you just have to
Yeah,
wait.
yeah. Honestly, people can't stand silence.
Hmm.
They just can't handle it. In like a room full of people, it just is so uncomfortable
But the thing
unless you
is,
have
like,
a specific thing you're doing, right?
yeah, but the thing is, you have to be aware of that
Mhm.
tendency, because you are also one of those people who
Yes,
wants to
yes.
fill the silence. So you'll
Yeah.
ask a question, they don't want to answer, and then you're bound to fill it in if you're not aware of that tendency, and so you have to
Mhm,
resist the urge.
mhm.
Mm.
I find that's true for difficult conversations too.
Mm.
When you have to tell someone bad news or something unfortunate, and you say it, and then you're like qualifying, and then I find that I'll be like, but I can understand how," and then I'll like add in some sort of other detail that I wasn't gonna say. Like I always do that if I because there's
You're
that
right about
anxiety, right?
that.
You're like nervous,
You probably deal with that a lot, being a having, like, being a boss of people, right?
like a boss, like
Yeah.
a mouse. Yeah, yeah. It's it's not all the time, but it happens.
But also, just
It sucks.
like I think you're right. Anytime I've been in, like, take podcasting for example, and you have to work with other people like you, it always happens whenever money comes up, when you have to talk about,
Mm,
like where Patreon money is gonna go, or like on other shows I've done where there's advertising stuff and you're trying to figure out what to. Nobody likes talking about that, and you're right. If I think back on it, I do that all the time. I'd be like, okay, it's time to have this conversation, and this is what I was thinking, and then I'm gonna keep talking about it. But you know why I was thinking that is because, and it's
yep, yep. Oh my gosh,
because you're just
it's so true.
uncomfortable with the conversation to begin with, so your threshold is probably already lower.
Okay, I have to read out the story that Stephanie just said.
Okay.
So I was at a new job once. I was left alone at my desk and I just kind of sat there awkwardly while the other 6 plus people in the room were working. I remember saying out loud, "So, Anyone else hate it when a room is too quiet? And no one said anything, just left me hanging. Ah, that
That's
is
terrible.
so cringe. That
Yeah.
is so awful. No one even looked at me. Oh, Stephanie, that's so terrible. I can't. I hope you quit that job. She's like, "I've been there 20 years."
Yeah.
That sounds so bad, and you're putting yourself out there. You
Yeah.
don't know what to do. Everyone's really quiet. You're like, "How do I behave in this situation?" You're it's a bid. It's a bid for connection, and they turn you down. That is cold.
Yeah.
That is cold.
They don't deserve you.
Oh, that's so terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine just sitting there when someone did that? Also, I wonder, like, a workplace where you just ignore something someone very obviously said might not be might not be a great, happy, calm place to work.
Yeah.
Things might be a little intense.
Sounds like a bunch of sociopaths to me.
Crazy. Stay
Ugh.
for 3 years.
Well, anybody listening on Patreon probably has picked up by now that this is our live show we're doing. So, yep.
Yeah, we totally forgot about that piece. And the fabulous Stephanie is our only person in chat. By the way, Stephanie, it's okay if you have to leave. You mentioned earlier, since you're the only one, you feel like you have to stay, but you don't.
There are others
It's
coming. I
all
already
good.
know other
Yep.
people are going to be showing up. It's just, sometimes you got stuff happening. And we also kind of, I say we, but I forgot to make the normal requisite posts earlier in the day. And
I totally forgot that we were live until like last night. So
yeah, I was laying
we're
on the
good.
couch.
We're
We
good.
had just had an event, a school type event. It was like a fundraiser type thing. You go to the local restaurant that was everybody who comes in and shows the flyer, they'll give a portion of your, meal that you paid for to the school. So
Mm.
bunch of people were there. Kids wanted to go, so a bunch of people from school were there. We were having a good time. So then we get back. Kids have to take baths and showers and everything to get ready for going to bed. And I was like, I'm gonna lay on the couch and watch some Severance while I wait for the kids' bedtime. And then I think Mora had messaged me and said, I don't even remember what she said because then it suddenly hit me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I looked at the calendar and it said that it was a live show. And I was like, it's a live show tonight. I haven't done any of the things that I normally prepare for a live show. So I couldn't watch any. I had to get up and do a bunch of work
Oh
instead.
no.
Yeah.
Are you working through season 2?
Yeah, I'm caught up. Another one comes out tomorrow. So I guess I'll be 2 episodes behind when tomorrow happens. But
Yeah, I'm a full season behind, so I'll
are you're working on season 1?
No, I'm done season 1. I'm just
Oh, you just
haven't
haven't
started
started
2, so
season 2.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a good one. It's really good.
I'm so glad to hear that because
Yeah.
I just loved season 1.
It's
I know I've talked about it before.
it's just as good. So, it's
Amazing.
if not better. I might argue that it's better, but I'm a little biased cuz I'm in the middle of it, and
Yeah.
anticipating each episode, so
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to say.
Oh, hey Palmer.
Hey, Palmer's here. Palmer's back.
Palmer's back.
This time in chat.
Stephanie, my brother said the same thing. He tried watching Severance, couldn't get into it. And tried watched about half an episode and was like, "Ugh." And I kind of get it because that first bit is a little it feels like a boring workplace. So
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, this is a boring workplace,"
You know what? You know what's great about that show though? So a lot of shows nowadays that you're going to be streaming, right? They're almost designed now to be binged. So they know they have like a few episodes, and they often take 3 episodes to really figure out to hook you. Here, Cyrenex is here too.
I see you next.
So they'll take 3 episodes. So a lot of times you have to say like, okay, stick it out for 3 episodes, and then you'll know. But Severance, from like the first 10 minutes, if you've watched the first 10 minutes of the very first episode and you're not like leaned all the way in, like wanting to know what the heck is going on, what is this world about, what, like, if you're not hooked in the first 10 or 15 minutes, then you're not going to be hooked, because the show is everything that it is in the first 10 or 15 minutes of that first episode, you know.
It was like my face was attached to the screen.
Right.
I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Wild. It was wild. So yeah, it's I mean, it's worth a retry if you wanna give it a whirl. But if it doesn't hook you, it doesn't hook you.
Yeah.
C'est la vie.
And yeah, and you know, it's definitely for a certain type of person. If you're not into that, like, I love world building also. I love not knowing what's going on in a world, and
Oh
like
yeah.
just being along for the ride to just learn what this world is about. And that's definitely what's going on in that show. Is there's, you know, it's also one of these cool kinds of shows where it's like it's almost out of time. You know, like there's some weird, like, what's the word, like,
Anachronisms?
yeah, there's like weird anachronisms, like the types of computers they're using,
Yep.
the phones they're using, and you can't really place quite where they are or when they are.
And they have like flip phones.
Yeah, but also they clearly
The
have
cars
very
are
advanced technology.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But also the way they interact with technology is totally different and weird. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
So to me that's super intriguing. Like, I want to know more, you know. And so anyway, yeah.
Oh, I could talk about that show for a whole episode. Have you been listening to the podcast as you go through? With
I
Ben
didn't know
Stiller
there
and
was a
Adam Scott?
podcast.
Yeah. They
It has a
release an episode
companion
every time.
podcast?
What's that?
So it has a companion podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
I
With Ben
love
Stiller
shows
and
that
Adam
do
Scott.
that. Oh my gosh, I might have to
Ugh.
rewatch it and do.
I guess so.
It'll be for the third time. I rewatched the first season, but to prep for the second season. So
Because
did they do it for
released
the first season too?
season episodes this January, like right before the second season came out. So they did the first season right before, and then now they've been releasing alongside the second season.
Oh, so the first season of the podcast was released after the whole first season had already been out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was like every 2 days they put out a new one because they produced it just for the release of the second season. So yeah.
But is it designed to be a watch along podcast where like you
Yeah.
watch an episode, listen to the podcast,
Yeah.
watch an episode? Okay. I like it when shows do that, especially shows that are like I did the Last of Us companion
Oh,
podcast.
they had one. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That was really, really cool and there's been other
I
ones.
like that too because I can only watch shows one episode at a time because I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, nowadays that's
get
what
too
I do
tired.
also. Nowadays I tend to watch it in the afternoon, like an episode before I go pick up the kids from school. So
Yeah.
but I used to not do those because I would binge several episodes at a time, and I didn't want to. I'm not gonna, it just wasn't. It didn't work. It didn't line up.
Yep. It's nice to have a heart out and then you don't binge so badly. Anywho, we should record our podcast.
Yeah. Ooh, you guys are in for a treat tonight because I realized also last minute that I had enough questions for a quiz for Maura, so Maura's gonna get quizzed.
Yay, a quiz.
I'm
I
gonna
don't
put
think
that-
I have enough questions for a quiz for you, but I should double check. Maybe I have a few.
I have 6 questions.
That's a lot of questions. Whew. Let's see how I do.
Do we have anything for the top of the show? I'm gonna say about something about the quiz, but do you have anything you want to chat about?
I got something small. Yeah.
Good. Small's good because I've got what I think will be a pretty quick news and then we got, so we'll have room for the quiz. Okay.
All right. All set?
Okie dokie. Oh, that's another show we just finished watching, me and Stephanie. I watched it for a second. Fallout.
That's a show?
Okie dokie. Fallout.
Okie dokie. Oh, Fallout. Oh, Fallout.
The character says okie dokie a lot.
That's right. She does. That is a great show.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, we're not going to get back into
TV. Hey everyone, it's March 10th, 2025, and you're listening to All Around Science. My name's Maura Armstrong.
And I'm Bobby Frankenberger, and we are two huge fans of science, here to get you caught up on what's going on in the world of science and just generally geek out about science stuff. That's what we do. That's what we like to do.
It's true. We do it every week.
Yeah. How are you doing, Maura?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I had a great opportunity last Saturday. I went skiing.
Oh, you've been talking to me about your
Yeah.
skiing escapades.
It's like a revival, a skiing revival.
Because you used to do it a lot when you were a kid.
Yeah, and then I tried snowboarding because snowboarding was way cooler in 2001.
Heck yeah, I lived in northern Minnesota when we were in like the 7th grade, and man, snowboarding was all the rage.
Oh yes, no,
all
no
the
one.
Cool kids snowboard.
100%. All the nerds skied, so I was like, well, I better snowboard because it wasn't kids. It wasn't cool to be a nerd then.
Yeah, the X Games were huge.
Snowboarding got into the Olympics.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk was
Tony
a thing.
Hawk Pro Skater was huge. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
skateboarding and snowboarding, that whole culture had taken over, and now it's kind of half and half.
I bet you fellow Canadian, not Alanis Morissette, although she is a fellow Canadian, but I was thinking of Avril Lavigne. She probably snowboarded. She did not.
Oh
ski.
yeah, she.
There's no way she would be caught dead on a pair of skis. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, it's I never took to snowboarding really well. I did okay. But always like skiing better. And so, yeah, but once I was, I don't know, like 21, that was like the last time I skied. And maybe again a few years later, but then jumped back in with my kiddo to show him skiing, and he loves it. And so I went with him on Saturday. I skied for 4 hours, Bobby, and that is a long time.
You skied for 4 hours?
Yeah, it was a lot of skiing because you spent the money. You're there. You got to make it work. Like you can't just pay $80 to go on a ski hill and not take advantage of it.
Isn't it funny that we do this to ourselves? Like you paid the admission to the park. You're gonna see every single thing and spend all day there, and like, but isn't there like a point?
You're gonna enjoy it.
Isn't there like a point where in order to try and get the most benefit out of the money you spent, you're also punishing your body? You know.
Well, 4 hours of skiing was a lot. I was tired, but it was fine. Like it was not an unreasonable amount. Most people go like all day, but yeah, it was really fun. Do you ski ever?
I've only skied one time. There's not really many places around here, although some people say that tell me that there are some places you can go up in the Appalachian Mountains. But I've only been one time, and it was when I lived in Minnesota, and so it was for a school trip, but I enjoyed it. It was fun.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time. And you can catch on pretty quick, like if you just getting the basics going down the hill. For skiing, snowboarding takes longer.
Yeah, I bet.
In my opinion. But yeah, I was sore for a couple of days, but surprisingly, it was kind of like riding a bike. I just jumped right back in.
Yeah.
All was well.
Riding a snowy bike with no spike.
Strapping sticks to your feet and gliding down an icy, snowy slope. That's what it was like.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of this slope, of this episode, we're going to be
Well
doing a
done.
little bit different today. We have a live show we're doing, and at the end of some of our live shows, we like to do quizzes for each other. And I have a quiz for you, Maura.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited and determined and afraid that I will get things wrong.
Oh, but it's not about getting right or wrong answers. It's about the friends you make along the way.
The true answers were inside me all along.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, because we're doing a live show today, we've got a bunch of live listeners hanging out with us. We've got Palmer, Stephanie's here, Cyrenex, Logan. We've got
Welcome.
a lot of the regulars and but you also can listen to us when we do our live shows. We do them once a month and we let everybody know on the episodes ahead of time. We're here on YouTube and that's fun. We like to do it. Speaking of
Yeah.
live shows, I told everybody that I would let you know more details when it's time, when the times were figured out. But our live show that we're going to be doing in Las Vegas,
Like live in person.
yeah, in Las Vegas, we're going to be doing a live recorded show. It's not going to be streamed, but we are going to be recording it and doing it live in Las Vegas on April 28th, 10 o'clock in the morning in the Plaza Hotel and Casino in the Canyon Room. So
Amazing.
check that out. If you're going to TMS Vegas, then you probably know already a lot of the places you can go to find out this kind of information. It's at tms.vegas, and there's going to be information on there all about the times. But yeah, it'll be 10 a.m. We'll be the first group. There's a series of 3 podcasts that are going to be sharing that room and doing shows back to back. We're the first ones on the docket, 10 to 12, right before the Daily Tech News Show does theirs. So
Yes, the coveted 10 a.m. slot. That's us.
yeah, science nerds, I think, can get up at 10 a.m.
I am so glad we have 10 o'clock because I will arrive in Vegas, spend some time, go to bed, wake up in the morning, finish the show, and then I can enjoy the rest of the day without stressing about it.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad. That's like perfect.
I may be a little tired because I usually am a late night person whenever we are in Vegas, but I'm gonna get up and do it.
Yeah, I feel like 10 a.m. is late enough that you can still get your full sleep. So
Yeah,
we should be able to manage.
Yep. So if you're going to TMS Vegas, Maura and I are going to be there, and the time to see us recording the show live. We're going to have some fun Vegas-y kind of stuff to do. We're hoping to do some interactive stuff with the audience as well. So if you're going to be in Vegas, you should hang out. Love
it.
Go there, 10 a.m. All right. But we have a science podcast to talk about. So let's do this podcast.
Let's get to it. See, Cyrenex gets it. It's about getting it right. It's about proving I'm smart. That's the most important thing, Bobby.
Yeah. Why are you 8 a.m., Logan? What are you talking about? What did you miss? You didn't miss anything.
I think he was asking if that's our time slot.
10 a.m.
Yes, thankfully. Do you have 2 drinks going?
So this is a beer.
Uh-huh.
But then I have just a general life habit of also incorporating some other non-alcoholic beverage into my alcoholic beverage drinking. Usually it's water, but this is like Crystal Light.
Gotcha. I thought it was both.
This looks kind of like a
2
beer.
beers. Yeah. I was like, that's
yeah, going hard tonight,
trading
Maura.
off between.
No.
That's right. It's getting crazy here on All Around Science.
Yep. Logan's gonna be there in Vegas. It's gonna be, and I think Stephanie. Has Stephanie decided to be here? Is Stephanie still here? Stephanie decided?
I feel like Stephanie did say she's coming, but I may be wrong. Stephanie's gone though.
Yeah, she said she's gonna listen to us later at 2 times speed.
I love when people come for the live show and they're like, wow, you guys talk so slow.
Yeah.
I can't listen to podcasts on 2 times speed.
No, me neither. I
Okay.
I curate my podcasts. I don't have like I just if I don't have time for a podcast, I just figure out which ones I'm not going to listen to, I guess. I don't know.
I just find the cadence to be upsetting. Like people talk, I don't know. It's something about it that just irritates me when I hear people talking in that very clipped, shortened way that it
I
two
have
times
listened to
speed.
podcasts at 1.5 speed, not
I can manage that
because I was
sometimes.
enjoying it or anything. I just needed to listen to something a little bit faster. 2 times speed is a little bit too much. I have to be focusing to be able to, and sometimes I don't want to focus. I kind of want to just casually listen to it. Definitely
Mhm.
can't
Mhm.
casually listen to it at 2 times speed.
Mhm. That's for sure.
All right. You ready for this?
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
I'm not ready.
I'm ready. I'm not ready. No? War 2 fans out there?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, all right. Let's see if Chet does.
All right, here we go. So social media is a like a big social. It's like the social issue of our day, wouldn't you say?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's an everything issue. It's a technology issue. It's a
Mm,
social issue. It's become a political issue. It's just an everything issue, social media,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um and people spend a lot of time on social media.
Mm, mm.
I was looking at some stats while I was preparing this news item that I'm going to talk about, and U.S. adults spend around 2.5 hours a day on social media. That's what they
Two
report.
and a half hours a day.
Yeah, and that's adults. It's higher if you're younger. Like young adults are higher than that. The younger you are, the more time you spend on social media. Um, the older you are, the less time. So, but that's like around the middle is about 2.5 hours a day. Canadians are doing a little bit better than the U.S. I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah?
say better, but I guess I'm placing a value on less
Yeah,
social
yeah.
media time. I don't know if that's fair or not, but Canadians spend less time on average on social media by
Mm,
about
mm.
20 minutes or so, I think maybe. So, um, but
Wow.
that's a lot of time. Like we're talking about at least 2 hours between
Yeah.
Canada, the U.S.,
Yeah.
and the U.K. 2 hours a day. And there's a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about the effects that
Mm,
that amount of time on social media might be having on us, right?
mm.
Physiologically and neurologically and psychologically, like in every way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Maura, let me ask you, what kinds of effects do you think social media is having on people?
Um, well, I think that physically there's sort of a hunched over stance that we all take when we're on our phones.
Yeah.
And almost always you're interacting on your phone. So I think that might be part of it. Might be some thumb issues as well. I think that socially, I think excessive social media use can cause loneliness. That would be my guess.
Mm,
And psychologically, and I'm talking like excessive, like, not necessarily just casual use where you're connecting with friends, but where you're on the scroll all the time.
right.
I think that psychologically it creates like pathologized FOMO. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
when you see what everyone else is doing and you compare your life to their highlight reel, you're
Right.
you're going to feel pretty bad about yourself.
But a lot of these things that you're coming up with are like you have some sort of an intuition about this. These are all subjective feelings that you have about the effects of social media, right? Like,
Yeah, I think they're from like scattered articles I've read too. Like I don't
mm,
think they all came just from my brain, but yes, that's basically that would be my sum up of it
yeah,
all.
yeah. It's hard. Science has a hard time pinning down what social media does to us because
Mm.
you have to ask very specific questions in science, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of the social media questions that science tries to tackle are very specific questions. We've talked on the show before about social media's intersection with people's political opinions, for example,
Mm.
or how social media is affected by people's outrage and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are very specific situations. So um, there was a paper that was published recently in February, though, that wanted to look at the psychological and physiological effects of social media use, right?
Okay.
Just how is social media, how is it affecting us physiologically and psychologically while we're using it? They specifically looked at people using Instagram. That was their use case
Mm.
that was just the very specific way they did it in this. The study involved 54 young adults, so it was more of a sort of kind of looking like you call it a pilot. You might be able to call it a pilot study. I don't know that they called it a pilot study, but it's definitely, they're just looking to see, is this something worth looking deeper into, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what they did is they took these young adults, they asked them to spend 15 minutes using their phones to browse Instagram, however they normally would. So there was not a specific way they asked them to look at it. Just look at your Instagram, however you normally would engage with your Instagram. While they were doing that, they attached electrodes to their chest and fingers to measure heart rate and skin conductance. So skin conductance is often used to measure. That's measuring how much we're sweating, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So and then before they did all this, before they did this 15 minutes of Instagram browsing, they asked them to first read a news article on their phone as a control condition, so they could make sure, that whatever results they were getting was not just because they were looking at their phone.
Right. Right.
All right. So the results were that browsing Instagram caused the participants to have lower heart rates and
Okay.
increased sweat response.
Okay.
And this particular combination of response, lower heart rate and increased sweat response, is that's a physiological response that's associated with. There's lots of research that shows that that's associated with being fully absorbed in highly significant or emotional stimulus. So basically, it's indicating high levels of excitement, immersion, and engaging with meaningful content to the individual, right?
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. So that's interesting, right? It's interesting that we're getting that sort of physiological indication that people are actually engaged with social media in that way.
Yeah.
They also had conditions where the participants were interrupted near the end of their Instagram viewing session and asked to go back to reading an article instead of continuing to look at Instagram. And when that happened, the sweating response increased even more, and their heart rate also increased, which is related to stress and anxiety. They also had them self-reporting some of their feelings about it, and they definitely self-reported that that when they were interrupted, they did feel anxious about it, and they were stressed and anxious about being forced to stop and wanted to get back to doing it. They had cravings, what they called social media cravings afterwards. And so the question that the researchers have about all this is, like, the key question is, if these are the types of responses we're getting when people are interrupted, if they're fully engaged and having a very positive experience while they're doing it, and they're very stressed and have cravings when they're taken away from it, do we call this behavior addiction?
Okay.
Right? Because you could say that them being pulled away from it, it looks kind of like withdrawal. It's not really withdrawal, because I feel like if you say that it is that's really downplaying what withdrawal really is.
Yeah, that's an intense
Yeah, withdrawal is very
condition.
serious and
Yeah.
physiological, right?
Yeah.
But the symptoms that people are experiencing when they're pulled away from it is similar to withdrawal. So they're just raising that question, right?
Mhm.
Do we
Mhm.
call this addiction? What do you think?
No. I wouldn't call that addiction.
No, and why not?
No, because I think that that's just not enough information to make a call.
Sure, sure.
Um I think there's hints at it, and I think it's possible to become addicted to your phone and to social media. I wouldn't say that's impossible, but
Yeah,
if this was universal and all the people they had take part in it, um, I'd be curious to know how much time they spent on their phones. Like, are they the kind of people who do those 2 hours a day
yeah.
or not?
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. An interesting question. Did they gather that kind of data, or did they control for that in any way? Um, and just because they're young adults doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, I guess you have a higher chance that you're going to be dealing with someone who's engaged with social media quite often, um, but it doesn't mean that they are. Did they control for that?
Yeah, yeah. So I would be curious to know because I think that I rarely go on social media, and when I do, I think those responses would be the exact same.
Yeah, and you
I
wouldn't
think I
call
would be
yourself
very
addicted,
immersed
is
and
what you're saying.
engaged. No, yeah, I'm on it like an hour a week.
Sure.
So there's there's not yeah, so I mean there's some hints that the mechanisms of addiction are there,
Right.
but addiction it goes so much deeper.
Yeah, and I think the researchers agree with you. What they talked
Hmm.
about is, well, first of all, they pointed out social media addiction's not currently recognized as a mental health disorder.
Oh, really? Okay.
So clearly the profession of psychology thinks like you do that it doesn't feel like it looks that way right now. And if it was going to be said to be that way, more research would need to be done, right? To
Mhm.
to justify that, to understand it more. Um, and the authors also say that what social media does, and this is also based on previous research, that social media is tapping into a basic human need for social belonging, right?
Mm.
Which is different than what drugs are doing, that you might be addicted to. Um,
Well, yes. However, it's sort of like a lot of drugs create a distilled version of a natural experience.
well, I
Is
think
that what social media is doing?
drugs are chemically hijacking the process of like pleasure and all that stuff, right? Like,
That's true, but gambling is also recognized as an addiction by psychologists.
yes,
Is gamble if you compare the two, it's a behavior. It could become compulsive, and it is sort of distilling this natural human tendency we have to try to take risks and succeed.
yeah.
Is social media doing that?
Yeah,
Anyway.
no, that's an interesting perspective. That's an interesting thought of that I hadn't thought about. The authors say that there is previous research that shows that the social aspect of social media is what drives people to use it the most.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so they make the claim, and this is all in the discussion, right? This is just their interpretation and and their thoughts about it. It's that they say that if social media were to be labeled addictive because of it's taking it, like, people are engaging with it for social reasons, then we might have to call things like friendship addictive, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a point that they made in the paper,
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
might be difficult for us to point to call it addictive if that's why people are engaging with it, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
There's somehow something different about it because it's social.
Mhm.
But you bring up gambling, and that makes me think, like one thing about gambling is that we're definitely being taken advantage of. Like our tendency toward
Mm. Mhm.
reward, stimulus response, and everything is being taken advantage of by people who design these games, right?
Mhm.
But so social media is designed with all the algorithms involved to
Mm.
take advantage of the way
Mm-hmm.
our brains work in this way. So it's possible that, yes, maybe we think we're engaging with it for social reasons, like that's our self-report reason for doing it, but it could be that really our our what do you call it, our pathways in our brain that
Our
engage
circuitry.
with socialness are being hijacked, like
Mm-hmm.
by these
Mm-hmm.
algorithms. So who knows? I don't
Yeah.
know. It's interesting to think about.
That feels like one we could have a long conversation about.
Yeah, for sure.
It's it's a blessing and a curse, social media.
Yeah.
Logan, that's how you read so many books. Here's my problem. I cut out social media for the most part, but I still play a lot of games on my phone. I think I'm addicted to games. It's entirely possible.
Mm.
That's where all my phone time goes these days, and it could be a little bit of a problem because I would love those hours back, but I just really love playing games.
Right. It's funny. Logan also says, I've had this nasty oxygen habit my whole life. Haven't kicked it yet. I don't know if he's only being funny or if he's trying to make the point that everything that we do, there are like physiological and
Yeah.
biological and
Yeah.
neurological like reasons why we're doing it. But addiction is called addiction because of, and I don't think, Logan, that you're denying that addiction exists, but
Yeah.
it does make me think about this, like addiction is called addiction in part because of the effects it has on us, and our way to conduct ourselves every day, right? So
That's why it always makes me laugh when people, well, I shouldn't say laugh. It makes me scratch my head when people say they're addicted to food.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't think that's a thing. Like,
Well,
I can understand.
there's definitely food addiction, I think that's
You think
recognized.
so? I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe to a specific type of food, perhaps, because of the effect it has on your brain, but like, you
Oh
can't be
no,
addicted to food.
food addiction's not currently included as or recognized as a
Like,
diagnostic category in the DSM-5. You're right.
if I don't eat, I get very grumpy and experience significant withdrawal from food. Like,
Yeah.
if if food addiction is a thing, then we're all addicted to food. Like, it just seems so silly. It's like being addicted to oxygen, right? Like, yeah, I guess, sure, okay. But I think what it means generally is that you have an unhealthy relationship with food, which
Yeah.
is totally a thing. It's maybe an eating disorder or something like that. Like, that I think it totally is a thing. But anyway,
Oh man,
I
this makes me
digress.
think I would love to talk to someone who, or just dig more into this idea of food addiction and why it's not, because
Uh-oh, Bobby's reading an article, everyone.
yeah, sorry. Food addiction, the idea that people can have addiction-like behaviors in response to eating certain foods. Chronic consumption of high caloric foods can lead to the downregulation of dopamine receptors in the brain,
Sure.
and withdrawal symptoms can lead to compensatory behaviors such as more intake of calorically dense foods. But those are just some of the then the next question is, then why isn't it an addiction if it has all these like addiction like components,
I think probably partly like, how are you defining it? Because again, if I eat a balanced, healthy diet, I'm still every day gonna want food and
Yeah.
feel, like all the like, and maybe not all of the things you listed, but like, I think the term food is too broad.
You're right.
Maybe addicted to high caloric foods, or maybe,
Well,
um,
that's a really good point, because we have eating disorders.
yeah, that's a thing.
So that is, of course, recognized, and
Mhm.
so you can have eating disorders which cover the those behaviors that are, self-destructive and
Mhm.
unhealthy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, but you're right. How are you? I think you're starting to pull me to your side, and maybe this is why it's not recognized, is because how are you addicted to food?
Yeah.
Like instead,
Something
you
you
you do
literally
have an
need.
eating disorder maybe, but
Mhm.
but you're not necessarily addicted to food.
My issue may be more semantic than anything, honestly, because obviously you can have these behaviors around food, yes, but just yeah, food generally, eh, I can't wrap my brain around how it can be an addiction. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, that's a good point.
okay, we ready?
Yeah, ready, 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 ready.
Bobby, today I want to talk about endometriosis.
Wow, you came in hot.
I did, and I'm saying I'm kicking it off with that because this comes with a not a disclaimer, but just a heads up, everybody. Whenever I talk about women's health, at some point during this episode, I will be climbing atop my soapbox
Hmm.
about ingrained misogyny in medical research.
Sure.
So, just so you're all aware. And I have noted too that a lot of endometriosis information on the internet, good information. It's not bad information. It's just um, very dry and impersonal.
Okay. Yeah.
So I do have a couple of my own experiences to share because I do have endometriosis. Um, and some that I've heard from other folks as well. So um I just want everyone to be prepared for that inevitable rant, which I will try to keep short. And the possibility, I know some people may be dealing with it, and some people are sensitive to that. So take
Sure.
care of
Yeah.
yourself. If you need to skip some bits, that's cool with me. I did talk long ago, episode 51. I did talk about my experience with IVF. So I've had a chance to talk a little bit about this kind of stuff before, and I talked a little about endo then. I will call it, abbreviate it as endo. Um, in some cases, uh, but yeah, I talked a little bit about it then because that was the cause of my infertility.
Hmm.
Um, so if you want to hear that story, pop back to episode 51, long, long ago. But I think in order to talk about endometriosis, we need a little menstruation primer.
Yeah.
Just a reminder of how the menstrual cycle works.
Yeah.
Or maybe for the first time, if you don't really know much about it, maybe this will be an opener for you. So if you have a uterus,
Hmm.
sits low in your pelvis. It is roughly the shape of an inverted triangle, kind of a skinny inverted triangle. And the inside of the uterus is lined with tissue called endometrium. Now, endometrium builds up on that inside portion of your uterus for about 3 weeks. And then, if you don't get pregnant, it sheds over the course of about a week.
Hmm.
And when it sheds, tissue and blood come out through the cervix and the vagina. So, if you imagine the apex of the triangle pointing downward, you've got the cervix, kind of a muscular opening, and then the vagina, which is like a muscular tube, and the tissue and blood come out of there. Um, if you, at some point during those 3 weeks, as the endometrium is building up, if you have sex and the sperm makes its way through the cervix, it may reach the top of the uterus.
Hmm.
And then at the top of this triangle, you've got the kind of two corners are sprout two sort of skinny little tubes called the fallopian tubes.
Right.
They're loosely connected to the ovaries, which release eggs. The ovum comes down through the fallopian tubes, and that sperm I mentioned before, if they meet together in the tubes, they may get fertilized, and then your floors will never be clean again because you'll have a baby. Bobby's laughing because it's true. So now I know that's a very basic biology lesson. Probably most of you knew 90% of that or more. But for those of you who had 10% to catch up on, that's all going to be key to understanding endometriosis.
Right.
So you can hear it in the name there. I talked about endometrium. That's the stuff inside your uterus. Endometriosis occurs when endometrium grows outside of the uterus.
I didn't actually know that. I knew it was a problem with the endometrium,
Hmm.
um, which that fluffy lining inside the uterus.
Yeah,
Um,
it does kind of look rough and fluffy is a good word for it because it's meant to be this really nutrient rich, lots of surface area,
yeah,
very easy for that little embryo to implant into.
right. But I didn't know it
Um,
was that endometriosis was when it grows on the outside of the
yeah.
outside the uterus.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that. That's okay. Okay, I'm learning now. Okay.
There you go. A few things are gonna make some more sense
Yeah.
here. So typically endometriosis, when you get extra endometrium, let me try that again. Typically, when you have endometriosis, the extra endometrium that is growing outside of your uterus is in the pelvic cavity.
Okay.
So it's usually tucked in around your bowel, rectum, bladder,
Hmm.
that kind of area, low in your torso. But it can be found in lots of really weird places. People can get it up in their shoulder. It can travel up the abdominal
Strange.
cavity,
Wow.
on their heart,
Wow.
on their bladder, on their vulva. Even sometimes it can go out.
How does that happen?
It. That's a great question, Bobby. That is a great question. We will get to that.
Okay, good. I'm
I'm
very
gonna tell you
curious.
one other place though, because this one's crazy. Because sometimes you can get endometrium that grows inside the uterine muscles.
Like in the
This
muscles
is
themselves.
in the muscles themselves, because
Wow.
the uterus is one, like, it's a big smooth muscle,
Yeah.
layers of smooth muscle. And um this is actually a different condition called adenomyosis, and it can often they think it's often happens because of trauma to the uterus, like if you have a C-section
Mm.
or some kind of
Oh, I
surgery.
guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because then it like the cells will end up
It
inside in
it'd be
between the
easier to
layers of
breach
muscles.
the
And
muscle layers if
yeah,
it's been
yeah,
cut. Yeah.
exactly, and sometimes it just happens too.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just random. um The problem when you have endometrium that is not inside your uterus, endometrium works because it has an escape hatch. It can go out your cervix. It drains out your vagina.
Right.
Your pelvic cavity doesn't have that. There's nowhere for it to go.
Oh.
It's not like it goes it's not involved in any of the other tubes that exit your body. You don't poop it out, you don't pee it out. It's just in there.
So does
And
it keep growing and building up if it's not inside the uterus?
yes, it does, because
Oh.
endometrium responds to hormones in your body.
Oh, so that's a problem.
It is a very big problem. Your ovaries go through cycles throughout the menstrual cycle, and they cause it to grow and then to shed.
Yeah.
And wherever the endometrium is, it doesn't matter if it's in your uterus or not. It grows and sheds and grows and sheds and grows and sheds over and over and over in the same place, as long as those hormone changes keep happening.
Right.
So, what this means is you've got little bits of tissue in weird places inside your body
Hmm.
that break down and bleed once a month. It's kind of like a permanent bruise deep in your
Yeah,
insides.
that's what I was just thinking as you were describing that. Is it sounds like hemorrhaging constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a lot of blood. You're not bleeding out for the most part. Maybe that does sometimes happen with some more extreme cases. But as you can imagine, it hurts.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes. So symptoms include extremely painful periods,
Mm.
nausea, bloating that can cause constipation and diarrhea.
I gasped just now because I'm just realizing that I remember I knew someone in high school who had
Mhm.
who had endometriosis, and
Mhm.
she was. she had very painful periods. Like she was like almost would just not be at school for
Yeah,
days.
some people
Yeah.
just stay in bed all day
Yeah.
when they have this. Yep, absolutely. Um, there's lots of other weird things that can happen. You can end up with abnormal bleeding from your bowel and bladder. I said earlier it doesn't leak out, but it can sometimes.
Yeah.
Another weird thing that will happen is because you've got this extra endometrium is it's causing, when you have your period, it is uh it's a little bit inflamed, right? It's bleeding,
Sure.
that space inside your uterus hurts a little bit. It shouldn't hurt a ton, but it'll hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
When you have it in your pelvic cavity, it's touching a lot of other things like your bladder and your intestines. So you can get pain while you're peeing
Mm.
or while you're pooping.
Mm.
Um, the other thing that can sometimes happen is infertility,
Yeah.
which is what happened in my case. Often, what the reason is, and there's more to it than this, but the reason is that endometrium, when it goes outside the uterus, it sometimes ends up in the fallopian tubes,
Oh, is
and
that
it's
what happened
not
to
supposed to
you?
grow there. Yes, that's what happened to me.
Okay.
It's supposed to stay in the uterus because um, endometrium in the tubes can cause the embryo to implant in the tubes, which would not the pregnancy wouldn't be viable. You can't
Yeah,
have a baby at full
that's very
term
dangerous
inside there.
too.
Yeah, yeah, it is very dangerous. And in fact, when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I was kind of lucky because I I had some of those symptoms. I didn't have the, like, stay in bed all day periods, thankfully.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
my pain was, like, manageable with drugs. Um, and, I had something called an endometrioma. This is a cyst on your ovary that is a little bit of endometrial tissue that has, menstruated on its own over and over and kind
Mm.
of captured a little bubble of blood,
Mm.
and you can see it on an ultrasound. It looks abnormal, and it's kind of nice when you have one of those, when you happen to have one of those, if you have endometriosis, because it's very obvious. It's a very obvious signal
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because it's very difficult to diagnose. Um,
What,
so it's
endometriosis in
weird.
general?
Endometriosis is very difficult to diagnose because
Oh.
these growths usually don't show up in an ultrasound. They're very small,
Okay.
and it's not like you might be able to see some of the effects of the endometrium because it can shift things around a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but it is not obvious unless you do surgery.
Oh,
That's
like
the only way they can.
exploratory surgery.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened with me, they saw my endometrioma, they saw that I wasn't getting pregnant. They said, "You probably have endometriosis." I had some of the symptoms.
Yeah, like
So,
it seemed, I guess in your case they were like, well, this is all these different symptoms are lining up. Seems pretty
yeah.
obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did surgery on me and
Well, that's what I was
removed
going
the
to ask is
endometrioma.
can you just remove it?
Yes,
Okay.
that you can, and they did. Um, but you can't remove all the bits on the inside. Now these I'm calling them bits, but I'm going to give you the real name. Adhesions. All the endometrial adhesions that are in the wrong place.
Oh,
Those can't
does that mean
be
more
removed.
will grow?
Yes. Do you mean like they'll spread within, or do you
Does that
mean
so is it like they're surgically removing the endometrium that's in the wrong place, but you said these adhesions are those like places where the endometrium will start growing again in the wrong place?
yeah, like
Okay.
it's really embedded. It's
Okay, okay. So it's not just like
if they could
sitting
scrape bits out, but
right. So it's not just like
yeah.
sitting on top of the ovary. It's kind of
Yeah.
embedded in the tissue of the ovary. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, when they removed it out of my ovary, Um, Later on, when I had my second baby, the fertility doctor said, Your doctor did a really good job because I can see he didn't remove very much of your ovary based on your blood levels of like my estrogen and whatever. They said
Hmm.
it looks pretty good. Your levels are really good. So there's a risk too there that if
Sure.
they
Yeah.
remove whatever cyst is in there, that it will remove some of the ovary and then change your hormone like profile.
Right. Right. Okay.
But adhesions, an endometrioma is sort of like a type of adhesion, kind of. Adhesions really, again, it's in the name. Um, when you get to more advanced levels of endometriosis, and this is measured by how much endometrium is outside of your uterus, um, you can start to get more and more of these adhesions.
Right.
Because the point of endometrium is to create a place where a fertilized egg can attach and begin to grow. But when it's in the wrong place, it'll create sticky spots where there shouldn't be any.
Mm.
And over the months, the tissue will grow. It grows and then sheds and grows and sheds and grows and sheds. And it will create spots where bits of the pelvic cavity adhere together.
Oh, okay.
And so it'll connect parts that shouldn't be connected, like your bowel to your bladder,
Yeah.
to your uterus, to your ovaries, and it can create it's like spider webs inside your
Yikes.
pelvic
Yeah.
cavity. And this can cause obstructions and shifting around that can cause pain and affect function. One thing that happened during my surgery is because I have stage 3, or this was 10 years ago, so maybe I have stage 4 now. Stage 3 endometriosis, which means I have a lot of adhesions, and my surgeon said that he how did he say it? He unpinned my bowel
Mm.
because it was, I don't know, all twisted around somehow. I can't say for sure what he did. I didn't really have any major issues with it before,
Sure.
but
Okay.
I felt the difference.
Yeah.
It was like the difference between taking the neighborhood route before. That's what I was doing. And then after post surgery, I was taking the highway. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Wow.
That it just changed. Things changed. Things
Wow.
changed. Yeah. Now, my first surgery, they also did a procedure called a hysterosalpingogram.
Yeah. Sure.
No, I said it wrong. Hysterosalpingogram. There we go. I was so determined to say that right.
Almost. You almost
Okay,
got it.
so what that means is they checked my fallopian tubes to see if that was the problem. To do this, they fill your uterus with contrast dye and then they take an X-ray and they see, did that contrast dye, did it go out the fallopian tubes? Because the fallopian tubes are not really connected to anything. They are just sort of floating near the ovaries, waiting for eggs to pop out, and hopefully they catch them. I know it's ridiculous. How does anyone ever get pregnant? I don't know. It's wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they take this photo to see whether you have viable fallopian tubes. I had at the time I had one that was working and one that wasn't. And so they said, "Well, it probably is still the problem. We don't want to rely on this, so we'll move ahead with IVF."
Yeah.
Um Now that was the first time. The second time I got this same procedure for my second baby. Um they I was awake and I laid down on the x-ray table.
Yeah.
They do their thing. They put like a catheter inside your cervix and then they put the dye in and then they take the photo. And you have to like I can't remember, I think you have to like breathe a certain way or whatever. You're just lying there, you're doing your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you put a bunch of dye into your uterus and it goes out of your tubes, your uterus will like expand a little, but then there's not a lot of pressure buildup because it's
Yeah.
all
Okay.
leaking out
Yeah.
into your pelvic cavity. But if your tubes are blocked and they can't go anywhere, it really, really hurts.
Mm.
So you're just, I'm not pregnant or anything. My uterus is just doing its thing, and then all of a sudden it's full of this dye. And the second time, it didn't move through the tubes at all.
Mm.
And I was, I'd done IVF, I had a baby. This was the second round. I'm trying it again. They said, well, maybe that tube will come through for us. And so I thought maybe there's a chance I can just get pregnant. I don't have to go through this whole thing again.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
lying on this table thinking that, and then they did it I think 3 times because they wanted to see, is it gonna go through? Is it gonna go through? And each time it hurt, it hurt, it hurt. And then somebody said, "Oh no, they're both blocked," and I just burst out crying.
Oh.
And these like it's funny because I um I think I shocked them. I don't think that had ever happened to the X-ray techs before,
Really?
because you're like, most of the time it's like, "Ah, my leg hurts," and they don't say the result. They never talk about the result with the
Right.
patient.
Right.
It's the doctor that does that, but they couldn't, like, it was obvious what was happening.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I laid on this hard table and just cried and cried and cried, and they just stood there looking at me, and they had no idea what to do, and I'm laughing, like, it was terrible at the time, but I'm even then, I was, like, kind of, like, laughing. I was like, "You people do not know what to do here." Like, it was already kind of
That's
funny.
interesting because, like I guess you don't really think about it, but like nurses and doctors, they get a lot of training on
Mhm,
how
mhm,
to probably comfort and help people and all those
mhm.
kinds of things. But the X-ray techs, they're just like
No.
they're just there to do their job and
They're like, "Click the button. The doctor will see you tomorrow.
yeah.
Have a great life." And then you're like, "Oh, that guy really, really messed up his leg. Oh boy, he's in for a long healing process." But
Right.
that's the doctor's conversation to have.
Mm.
Anyway, it was, and that was because it was the moment that I realized I have to do IVF again,
Yeah, yeah.
which is the whole thing. Listen to episode 51. Um, but that experience was kind of the progression of my endometriosis, and a bunch of other stuff
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
happened as well. Um, but why does endometriosis happen at all?
Mhm.
Endometrium is supposed to stay in one place,
Right.
but it doesn't always do so. Well, a little surprised to find out we're not really sure.
Hmm. Great.
Oh my gosh, something about the menstrual cycle that we're not sure about. Here comes the rent. Okay, I'll hold back. Um, so a couple of theories, a couple of ideas, hypotheses, I should say. One is called retrograde menstruation. They think that sometimes when somebody menstruates, the blood can come up through the fallopian tubes,
Hmm.
and with it come cells, endometrial cells,
Oh.
and that can push, can seed it. Another possibility is lymphatic spread. Your lymphatic system absorbs waste in clear fluid that is, moves through your body
Yeah.
and is cleaned in various organs throughout your body. And so sometimes it can also absorb cells, and those cells can spread through the lymphatic system. This is how
Mhm.
cancer is spread generally. Um, the other one is cell metaplasia. I hadn't heard of this,
Mm.
but basically, like, cells just convert to endometrium on their own, because
What?
every cell you have has the right genetics to be any cell in your body, right?
Sure.
And so they think maybe some people have certain markers and certain processes that cause that conversion.
Mm.
They do think there's a genetic link. It does run in families.
Mm.
So there's something going on there as well. Um, like I mentioned, diagnosis is generally symptom based, but confirmation normally has to come from surgery. They can't say for sure.
Right.
If you have an endometrioma, like I said, you're kind of lucky because they can see it very clearly. But none of this really answers why why is this happening? Why why does this cause such painful periods? And why the infertility? I mean,
Mhm.
the fallopian tube blocking, that's an obvious reason. But people with endometriosis, even stage 1 endometriosis, can have incredibly painful periods and still deal with infertility, even if their fallopian tubes are fine. And it actually kind of doesn't matter because, like I said, I was stage 3. I didn't have any really dramatic pain with my periods other
Right.
than those couple of symptoms I mentioned. So, why why would this be happening? Well, I did find a review paper that went through some of the research that has happened. Now, the menstrual cycle is hormonally controlled by 2 very important hormones. Well, more than 2, but there are 2 that are quite important: estrogen and progesterone.
Mhm.
We've all heard of estrogen, I'm sure. Uh, that's the dominant hormone in the first half of your cycle, and in the second half, post ovulation, after your ovaries produce an egg, progesterone is dominant. And one thing that has been found is that endo often comes with higher levels of estrogen
Mm.
alongside progesterone resistance.
Interesting.
So you're making the progesterone, but your cells aren't responding to it very well.
Mm.
And so this is an issue because estrogen stimulates the growth of endometrium. And if you have too much of it, it means those lesions outside the uterus, they're also stimulated. And that means it also means thicker, overgrown endometrial lining, which
Mm.
can lead to heavier, more painful periods. The other thing estrogen can do is it encourages increased inflammation.
Hmm.
It interacts with the inflammation process,
Yeah.
which of course can cause pain. So it can cause that to be more of a thing.
Right.
So you got too much estrogen rather, and progesterone is not doing its job the way it's supposed to. The role of progesterone, because it's the second half post ovulating, it stabilizes and maintains endometrial lining.
Mm.
This is when I did IVF, I took a progesterone supplement for the first weeks of pregnancy for this exact reason, because they were worried that the lining wouldn't be maintained.
Right. Okay.
So adding progesterone rather to the mix helps to maintain that. But if you don't do that, if you don't have that stabilization and maintenance just on a regular menstrual cycle, the lining may become abnormal, like it might grow weird
Mhm.
and it might separate painfully from the uterus. It might not be that sort of shedding process that naturally sloughs off, but it might be tearing and ripping parts of your uterus that are not meant, they're not
Mhm.
your body is innervated to tell you this is a problem.
Right. Right. Right.
The other thing progesterone has is anti-inflammatory effects. It's the
Mm.
opposite. So
Yeah.
without it, you've got a problem. So this could also, that lack of maintenance of endometrium could explain infertility as well.
Yeah.
The other really cool thing that they've discovered is that microRNA might be implicated. Do you remember the Nobel Prize for microRNA
I do
recently that
remember
that
it
we talked about?
being a Nobel Prize, but I don't remember a lot about the microRNA right now.
So, and I won't dig into it. All I'll say, they're small RNA molecules that regulate gene expression.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
they can cause some genes, turn genes off, turns other genes on. And they found unique microRNA expression in endometriosis. In
Mm.
particular, genes that regulate inflammatory mediators. An inflammatory mediator is proteins that tell your inflammation to cool it.
Cut it out.
They're just like, stop it, stop inflaming. That's
Yeah.
enough. Because you got lots of balances. Inflammation is important, but it also can get to be a problem. So your body balances out.
Right.
Um, and what's really, really cool about this is research into microRNA related to endometriosis has led to the first non-invasive test for endometriosis called DotEndo.
Hmm.
And what it does, you take a blood sample, and it looks for the right microRNA in the blood. This is a
Ah,
biomarker.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's an indication of a disease that we can chemically detect.
That's awesome.
Um, and those particular types of microRNA that are present in endometriosis are different than what's expressed in normal endometrium. So they can definitively say this indicates that you have endometriosis without going through surgery.
So they've gotten to the point where it's it's a good test for it. Like it's
This is a very new thing.
very new. Okay.
I think it's only a couple of years old. I went on their website and they said it was extremely reliable, which is what a website's supposed to do.
Right.
So I can't independently verify, but the study that they linked looked really promising,
Sure.
and I'm not sure how much it is in general use. But
Right.
the interesting thing about endometriosis, because you can't see it and the severity of it doesn't always line up with the severity of symptoms,
Yeah.
it's really hard to diagnose. And some people will go for a decade of pain, of infertility, and all of the things listed without a diagnosis. Um, and the treatment for this is generally there's if pain drugs don't work, um, you can do hormonal therapy, and it basically controls the expression of various hormones that cause all these things that I've listed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes through pills. Sometimes people will get to the point where they need to have a hysterectomy, so they have to get their uterus and they'll get their ovaries removed because the ovaries are responsible for that hormone production
Right.
that allows that fluctuation, and that will allow it um to go away. It eventually will peter out. Um when I got pregnant the first time, my doctor told me, "Well, you've got a 9-month treatment for endometriosis because you're not going through the cycle, it's not shedding, it's
Oh yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it." So, yeah, so people will be put on the pill or they'll get uh uh dang it. What's it called? IUD.
IUD. Okay.
I'll start with people who go on the pill.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people will go on the pill, they'll get IUDs with hormones in them or hormone implants, and that can sometimes control symptoms.
Right.
Um, but the a very real problem in medicine is uh, bias against women's symptoms.
Yeah.
They're not believed as strongly. And I remember as a young woman being told, "Oh, period pain's different. Like you just bear through it. Like you don't take drugs for that."
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Like that kind of thinking is still out there. So, it is a very difficult condition to live with for some people. And here's the crazy thing. It affects 2 to 10% of women.
Really?
Yes, and what drives me crazy about this, when I was going through this 10 years ago, only 10 years ago, finding out about this and learning all this stuff, they told me 2 to 3%.
Wow.
So they've realized there's way more people who have it than we first thought. And we have no real idea. Like that range means maybe, right? There's some clear uncertainty there. And that's 5% of human population could have this condition, and we still we still can't really treat it
Is it
very
5% of
effectively.
people or 5% of women?
It's 5% of, well, I'm extrapolating the 2 to 10%.
Oh, the 10%,
Yeah,
half
yeah.
half. I gotcha. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Doing a little math there. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously a deeper understanding of the menstrual cycle would help here. We know some things about it.
Also,
But
just believing women.
wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if you went in and you were like, "Hello, my uterus hurts so bad that I can't get out of bed for 2 days a month. Can you help me?" And doctors would be like, "I have many options
Yeah.
for you." And I
Instead of
don't like, I think
instead
there's a
of instead of
tendency.
taking the pipe out of his pocket and saying, "You just got to deal with it, sweetheart."
Oh my god. There is a tendency to villainize doctors in this situation, but you have to remember that they're also the support they have isn't there. Like there's not
Yeah, 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 yeah.
17 different options for endometriosis diagnosis and treatment. It is very difficult to find the right thing. And if they can't definitively say, yeah, here's what you've got, they're just like, take more Tylenol, I guess. Like it's so difficult to really do that. But again, they also have a role in believing what people say. I heard one story, a woman who had extremely bad pain ended up getting a hysterectomy. After her surgery, the people were like, okay, how's your pain? Do you need more drugs? How are you doing? Is this
Mm.
okay? And she laughed because she was like, this is so much less painful than like a regular period. And I was like, really? Your whole uterus got taken out and it's less painful
Wow.
than a period.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just like an organ going missing from your body and being like, well, that's better? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild.
It's like when you have a really big thorn stuck in your thumb or something, and it
Yes,
hurts really bad, and then
exactly.
you rip it out, and that hurt, but
You're
it's
like,
not as
oh,
it doesn't feel as bad as it
thank
used to.
goodness.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
Wow.
if men got endometriosis, it would have been cured by now, that's for sure.
But you make a good point that more research needs to be done, because when the research gets done, then the diagnostic criteria and the understanding of
Yes.
the everything
Yes.
changes, and then that's what gives doctors the tools to understand what their patients are
Absolutely.
going through. So, yeah.
Absolutely. It's complicated. It's difficult, and I think it's hard to understand, and that's exactly the kind of problem that science is really great at digging into and untangling. This
Yeah.
is not an impossible one. So, I'm glad to see how far it's come, honestly,
Mm,
that this test exists,
me too.
that they've recognized it's more common than they think. And a lot of this stuff I hadn't seen or heard about when I was first learning about this. So
Yeah.
progress is being made. That ended up being longer
It's okay.
than I expected. Oh, Logan, I wonder if there's a
Yeah.
comparison between research dollars spent on male pattern baldness versus endometriosis.
I mean, if the
Do not get me started. I won't even want to look that up.
if I just think about the number of advertisements I've seen for each of those conditions, then then I have a guess.
Don't make me swear on this podcast. What about trying to revive the woolly mammoth? How much
Yeah,
money's been
really.
spent on that?
Listen, Maura, both of those involve hair, and hair is very important to us men.
Apparently. Ooh, look up some photos if you can stomach it of stage 4 endometriosis and it does look a little like hair. It's
I'm about to do that right now.
horrifying.
Here we go.
That's the word I would use. Horrifying.
Here we go.
And
Image
it's in my
search.
pelvis.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Yup.
Spider
Yup.
webs is the right word.
Spider webs, yeah. I also recently, over the last few years, have been getting like random weird pains in my pelvis. And it feels like someone has a string inside that just like pulls
Really?
sometimes.
Oh man.
And I'm like, I think I know what this is.
But
But,
what a
you know, it's they can't see it. I got a CT scan and they still couldn't see anything.
so many of these images on this image search are like hidden for me to click on to reveal, because of, I guess, how graphic they are.
It's funny because I
Oh,
my
their safe
first
search hidden.
surgery.
Yeah, turns here we
Oh,
go.
so yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess there's my first surgery, I asked my doctor, I was like, "Can you take pictures? Can you give me pictures?" So he did. He gave me like a bunch of pictures. So I have all these pictures of my uterus.
Yeah.
and even I can't really see it. It's really strange. I don't know what I'm looking at, right? I can't tell.
Right.
So he
Right.
had a bunch of pictures. There's a couple I'm like, "I think that's one." But, I did a presentation about IVF, uh, and, I took these pictures, and I showed them to everybody. And I was thinking, I was like, "I just showed my insides to this huge crowd that I would never show, like, any like, there's certain part of my outsides I would never
Yeah. Yeah.
show to
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
crowd." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Isn't that a weird thing?" I'm just very comfortable showing this. You're making scrunchy faces.
Well, it's
Are you
because
seeing
these
the horror?
pictures are like
Yeah.
it's Spiderwebs doesn't quite capture it when you start seeing like the actual images of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's like it's like an alien space, like a spaceship on an alien that's been taken over by aliens, and they've got like things, mucus growing everywhere, and
Yeah, it kinda looks like what's the Zerg? The StarCraft?
yeah, that's
Like
right, yeah,
like a colonized like the Zerg will, like, invade people?
yeah. So do you have to? That's something you're gonna have to go back and get taken care of again.
Maybe. They have, there's, I may have some related issues that are, causing could be caused by it.
Yeah,
Like I said, I mentioned that pain, and they scanned me, and they found something else happening, but it might be related, so
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I have to deal with it, until I guess I stop having periods, um, and, hopefully it'll manage to get to the end without having to get more surgery.
yeah.
You require more overlords. I love
Uh,
StarCraft too. I'm very bad at it, but I do enjoy it a lot. Um, yeah, I mean, as long as it doesn't get to my heart, that's the main thing. I
oh
don't
my
want that
gosh,
to
that
happen.
sounded scary when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's extremely rare.
All right, I've got something to bring us into the next thing, and then we'll start the. It'll be really fast, and then we'll do the
To wrap
quiz.
it up quick, yeah.
We've got a quiz we're doing. Don't forget.
Quiz, quiz, quiz.
All right. Maura, it surprised me when you said that when you were younger, there were doctors that, or like people in your life that just said, like, that would just say, I don't know if you were saying it was in your life or just people,
Mm.
like, people
In my life. No, it was in my life.
that were just like, oh, you're having a painful period? Well, you just have to bear it.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Because my
Shouldn't have
daughter,
eaten the apple.
yeah, right. But because my daughter has periods, and like, first time she's like, oh, I have, like, she knows to say, like, can I have some ibuprofen? Like, we're like,
Nice.
yeah, here,
Nice.
go take it. Like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
this is,
Yes.
I don't know, we're all, I just can't imagine, like, not wanting, I don't know. I'm just like,
Yeah,
you don't,
no,
I don't want
I
her
mean, I
feeling the
ignored
pain.
it.
Yeah.
I ignored it. I used to they're not as bad as they used to be, but I used to, like, layer the take Tylenol, and then 2 hours later take Advil, and then 2 hours later take Tylenol, like,
Oh, yeah. That's an old
layer it
pharmacist
on.
trick, also. That's what Stephanie says.
Yeah, it kept me sane, it kept me going
Yeah.
some days.
Yeah. Well, I've got something that'll help keep you sane and keep you going.
Oh boy,
And
here we
that
go.
is a quiz. Are you ready for a science quiz?
I'm always ready for a science quiz.
We should have like a little stinger here that I'll just do it live on the fly with my mouth. Ready? Bennett science
Ready.
quiz.
Science quiz!
Yeah. We've got a science quiz. We like to do these during our live shows where so what we do is we ask people to, if they've got like ideas for quiz questions, just hop on to the Discord. We've got a channel for both Maura and I. So so people submitted questions for me to ask to Maura during our live show in a channel that's questions for Maura. And then what we do is when we collect enough questions, for one another on the next live show after we've collected enough questions, say like 4, 5, 6 questions. Then we'll quiz one another. One of us will
Mm-hmm.
quiz the other, and we'll see how many of these questions you can get right that are all sciencey questions. Most
Love
of these questions, all but one of them, were submitted by a friend of the show, Logan.
Yeah, Logan, who's in the
s-
live chat right now.
who
Thank
is
you,
in the
Logan.
live chat. So Goody gets to hear whether or not you can answer these questions. Are you ready, Mora?
Yes.
All right, here we go. In no particular order, I will ask these questions. Actually, they're in exactly the order that he gave them to me. So here we go. Ready? Question number 1. At its thinnest point, what outermost layer of the Earth only goes down about 3 miles?
The crust? Or is it the atmosphere?
It goes down about 3 miles at the outermost layer of the Earth. You got it right. The crust.
Crust.
I'm-
Yeah, a crust. Okay.
Yeah. You were. I paused for a second and it made you overthink of it. Good. Yes, crust. You got it right. Yeah.
Crust.
At its thinnest point, here's a follow-up question. He didn't ask this, but here's my question for you. Do you know there's 2 types of crust? There's continental crust and there's oceanic crust. At
Mhm.
the thinnest point, which one is it? Continental or oceanic crust?
Oh, I would guess oceanic.
You are correct. Oceanic crust gets to be about
Yeah,
3 miles, about 5 kilometers thin. Yeah.
that's very thin. It's
Yeah.
not
It really
when you
is.
think about it.
Yeah, well, on the continent, like continental crust, which is on the continents, like on land, it can get as
Mhm.
thick as 70 kilometers, 43 miles. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
pretty good. So Logan's here listening to us right now. He says stuffed crust is his favorite.
Mm.
Yeah, the crust is very thin. Like if the Earth was an
It
apple,
really is.
it would be like the skin of the apple.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's only 1% of the Earth's total volume. Did you know that?
Huh. And that's all we got. That's
Yeah.
what we live on.
That's all we got. So protect the Earth's crust. Don't be like some of those scientists trying to dig holes all the way through the crust into the mantle.
That's right. Get all that magma out.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
All right, next question. You ready?
Mhm.
What's the name for a giant crater that forms when a volcano erupts and then collapses in on itself?
Fumarole.
A fumarole, is that what you said?
Yeah. FUMA. Yeah.
Oh,
I must be wrong.
Fumarole, not like ephemeral. Like
No.
a
A
fum-
fumarole.
You might have guessed by now that is not the answer because
Yeah, no, I figured. That's the only like volcanic-y thing
Yeah.
word that I could think of. Hang on, let me think. No, I don't know. What is it?
a caldera.
A caldera. No, I
Yeah,
wouldn't have gotten
A
that.
caldera.
I've
The
heard
famous.
word
Do you know
before.
the famous caldera that lots of people have heard about?
Is it in Iceland?
No, I'm sure there is. There
probably are
may
some,
be
yes.
may be one, but like the one you hear about all the time is where Yellowstone National Park is. Here in the U.S.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
sitting on top of a giant caldera that was formed by a supervolcano eruption 640,000 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Which that's what fuels. You said you had a feature about this. That's what fuels the geysers and hot springs
Yeah.
that are in
Mhm.
Yellowstone, and also all the documentaries speculating when the next super volcano eruption is going to destroy North America. It fuels those as well.
Yay.
All right, next question. Ready?
Uh-huh.
It's question number 2. You've gotten one out of 2 correct so far. Question number 3. Some insects go through what life stage between larva and adult? So there's 3 life stages: larva, something, and then adult. What is the something? The middle one.
Is it a pupa?
You got it. Yes, it's
Okay.
a pupa.
Haha.
Yeah, the pupa.
Look at me.
What else do you know about the pupa stage? What is that stage?
That's like the cocoon, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's when you wrap yourself up in the silk and then come out as a beautiful butterfly.
Yeah, that's the metamorphosis stage for a lot of insects, when
Metamorphosis.
the pupa gets wrapped around by a cocoon or a chrysalis if you're a butterfly. The difference being what, like a cocoon, moths weave cocoons around themselves.
Mm.
It's like threads that they wrap around themselves. But a chrysalis, the butterflies, caterpillars will just when they form into a pupa, that outer layer just solidifies into a hard shell, and then
Mm.
the pupa's inside that. And
Same
so,
thing happened to Kerrigan in StarCraft.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
All comes back to StarCraft.
Bring it back, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so there you go. 2 out of 3. You got question number 4. You ready? There's 3 more to go. Question number
'Kay.
4. Located between the lumbar and the coccyx, what triangular bone is less holy than its name would imply?
What a great
I
question.
know, I like this one.
Located between the lumbar and the coccyx.
Yeah. What triangular bone is less holy than its name would imply?
I can picture the bone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't remember.
You're gonna hate it.
I'm gonna
You're
be
gonna
so
hate it when you hear
annoyed.
it. The
I'm gonna be so
sacrum.
annoyed. The
The
sacrum, of
sacrum.
course.
Get it?
Holy.
Holy
Oh, and there's a
sacrum?
joke in there too. Wow, that was a well-crafted question.
Well, I don't know if Logan even realizes how it's not quite as much of a joke as he might have thought, because the name sacrum actually comes from sacred,
Oh,
because it was considered to be a sacred bone.
because that's where your butt is?
Well, it was it was believed that it was the seat of the soul and that it was essential for resurrection.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, because that's sort of like the where it's positioned in the body, like all of the upper part of your body, like your
Mhm.
spine and everything attached to your spine sits on it, like like it
Hmm.
just sits on top
Hmm.
of it and
True.
supports everything into your pelvis, and yeah. So, but it was thought
I'm
to be
so
a
annoyed I didn't
sacred
get that
bone.
one.
Yeah, it actually
Sacrum.
starts as
Wow.
5 separate bones
Oh,
when you're born, and then it eventually fuses into one when as an
like your
adult.
skull.
Yeah. All right. So you're half and half so far. 2 for 2, or
Oh
2 for
boy, that's
4.
embarrassing.
So next question. Next to the incus or anvil of the ear, what's the more popular name for your malleus bone?
The hammer.
You got it. It is. It's the hammer. You had that
Hammer, the
one.
anvil, and the stirrup. That one I know.
Yeah, you got all 3 of them. Good. That's extra bonus fun. The
anything
malleus.
anything that's like taught to children, I know.
Malleus, did you know this? Malleus actually means hammer in Latin.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mallet. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. So that bone is attached to the malleus, the hammer. It's attached to the eardrum, and so when
Mm.
sound waves hit the eardrum, it vibrates, vibrating the malleus, the hammer, which then in turn vibrates the incus, which is the next bone, that then vibrates the stapes, which is the third bone in the ear, and then the whole point of those 3 being connected is that it's amplifying that vibration, right?
Mhm.
And because then the stapes is connected to our cochlea,
Mhm.
where it translates that vibrational energy into like liquid waves in the liquid in our cochlea, which then move the hairs in our ears, which then translates that into an electrical signal to our brain, right? Like,
That just happened to all of you right now.
I
Sometimes
know.
I disconnect from reality when I think about this kind of thing, and I'm like, that's happening right now.
I've often said that in another life, if I had if like the right professor had reached me at the right time when I was in college,
Mhm.
I got a psychology degree, I might have gone into neuroscience, specifically on sensation and perception, because
Mm.
I think
Mm.
it fascinates me, our
It's
senses.
wild. Yeah.
Um like just think about that. The whole step-by-step process of air molecules moving back and forth, which is what sound is, and
Mhm.
how that goes step by step by step through this
Mhm.
long chain of events that gets translated into electrical signals into your brain. Like, it's so fascinating to me.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right, one more question. You ready?
Yep.
Last one. How many teeth do snails have? Logan did not come up with this question. This question was given by, I'm going to look it up while you, I forgot to write it down, but I'll look it up while you're thinking about it. How many teeth do snails have?
Okay, this is a guess.
If you get
100% a
close, then I'll give you credit. Depending on your answer, I'll tell you if I think you're close enough.
Okay. Well, the fact that you just said that makes me feel like my answer's wrong, but here we go.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess that they have one tooth and it's actually their shell.
That's a good guess. If you had to guess,
Right, like that feels like the kind of answer that would be right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good guess. It's not right, but
Okay.
because the real answer is that it's about 20,000 teeth.
No way. Oh, it's like a bunch of like hard little bits.
Yeah. Snail teeth are actually really fascinating. Tweep was the one who gave us this question and made the extra little note in the question that said that they're actually stronger than diamonds, these teeth that snails have. It does require a little bit of clarification when we say stronger than diamonds, because technically that is correct if you're talking about strength. Because there is, in material science, you have strength and you have hardness, right? And so strength is more about the ability for a material to withstand a force without breaking or deforming. So there's like tensile strength, compressive strength, shear strength. Tensile strength being when you pull on something, how much force can you pull on it with before it breaks, right?
Yeah.
And then compressive is pushing on it, and shear is when you're applying a sideways force. But anyway, hardness is a substance's resistance to being scratched.
Okay.
Right. And it's not clear whether or not these teeth that snails have would be harder than diamonds. Diamonds are pretty hard. They're famously hard. The diamonds do the scratching on things.
Yeah.
That's what often they're used for in industry and all sorts of stuff. The diamonds are the things that do the scratching. They're often used because they're so difficult to scratch. But they are stronger. These teeth are stronger than diamonds. Diamonds have a tensile strength of 1.2 gigapascals. Now, I know that number doesn't mean a lot to probably a lot of people. Diamonds are very strong. Let's just say that. 1.2 gigapascals is a lot. But limpet snails, which are a type of marine snail, these snails specifically have teeth with a tensile strength of 3 to 6.5 gigapascals.
Oh, jeez.
So well stronger than
What
diamonds.
are they eating with these teeth?
They're scraping algae off of rocks. And so this allows them to do that without
wearing down
the teeth and being able to continue doing
cool.
it. Yeah. It's the tensile strength that these teeth have, I looked up, it's the equivalent to a single strand of spaghetti. Let me just read it and then I'll explain why I'm laughing. The equivalent of a single strand of spaghetti holding up to 3,000 half-kilogram bags of sugar. So the reason I'm laughing is because isn't that just 1,500 kilograms? Couldn't you have just said that?
Why would you say it that way? That's so weird.
It's equivalent to 6,000 quarter-kilogram pouches of iron oxide filings.
It's equivalent to 4.8 million hornet wings. So weird.
But yeah, and the teeth are made out of like iron oxide materials that create like these nanofibers that embed proteins in them and all sorts of crazy stuff.
What? That's wild.
When scientists learned about it, it inspired a lot of nanofiber materials that were created because they're like, oh wow, this is really strong, and it's because of the structure of these fibers.
I love that.
Really interesting. Good job, Maura. You answered, what, 4 out of 6 of these questions?
Did I get 4?
No,
I think
you got
I got
3. You got 3.
50%. I guess I passed.
I think that's about what we often do is about.
Yeah,
half.
we usually typically are about half.
Yeah. So thank you, Tweep and Logan, for submitting those questions. We love answering those and learn we all get to learn a little something along the way.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was true. It was the friends we made along the way.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of All Around Science. If you would hold on, why can't I do this every episode? Why do I need to read it? I didn't have it in front of me, so I have to stop now. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of All Around Science. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you've got questions or feedback, you can email us at contact@allaroundscience.com.
We're on socials at All Around Sci or All Around Science.
My name's Bobby.
I'm Maura.
And we'll see you next week for some more science stuff. So I don't have to read the intro. I often can just do that one. I think I know why I needed to read the outro, and it's because I often screw it up and try to like ad-lib things in the middle of it, so I probably
Just gotta read it.
Yeah.
Just gotta read it.
Just gotta read it.
Batting 500. 50%. I don't know. It's also a D. It's a D grade. I'm very annoyed about Sacrum still. That's the one.
You should have known it, huh?
I wouldn't have gotten Caldera, and I would never known that about snails, but Sacrum, I knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, we're quick today. Okay, ready?
Yep.
On today's episode,
social media is making us sweat.
And let's talk about endometriosis.
All that and more today on All Around Science. There we go.
50% is an F? Isn't usually 50% the bare minimum passing grade?
No. What is a passing grade in where you are?
50%.
Really?
It depends on the class.
Yeah, well maybe that's why.
If you wanna stay in like the like top tier high school classes, you have to get 65. But
you're not passing unless you make a 70% here.
70?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I did know this. I remember learning about this because I get very confused when I would read American books because they'd be like, I failed, I got 60%. And I'd be like, what? But also, like, the alongside the weird high school like year names, 70% is a C.
Yeah. Technically, some people think of in the 60%. That's a D, but I've never been to a school that actually. It was like A, B, C, and F.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know why our grades are more lenient. Maybe the curriculum's harder, but I doubt it. I mean, the point is truly grades don't actually matter. So, like, at the end of the day, if you can learn well.
How do you feel about the mastery approach to learning?
Like not grading at all?
Well, just like you have to demonstrate mastery of a topic before you move on, like especially in math. This is what like Khan Academy uses this model.
Yeah, that sounds nice, but it also sounds like it would take a lot of staff power.
Yeah, in a classroom setting, it would be really challenging.
That sounds
everybody
expensive.
learns at different speeds and rates.
That sounds like the best option, but
yeah, I think it works really well for Khan Academy because people can be sitting in their homes doing it and doing mastery, but yeah, it feels to me like if you learn 50% of something, then you haven't learned it. But maybe that's just my bias because I was raised with 70% being the minimum acceptable amount.
Wow, 70%.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty hard to get 70%, I feel like, for a lot of people.
Yeah. When you were okay, what's an A considered? Like, do you have typical letter grades in your school?
It depends on the school, but
Sure, but when they do exist,
I think that 80% and above was an A.
wow,
I
I'm
think
learning.
so.
So I did
Yeah.
not know that. Like, if you want an A, you got to get like when I told you that my daughter had all A's, all of her classes were 90% and above. Like
Oh, wow.
that's an A is 90%.
Huh.
And then a B is
Interesting.
80 to 80, 89, like in the 80s. A C is in the 70s.
Huh. Interesting. No, yeah, it was 80%. 80%.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know. That's
What do
weird.
we know about the happiness levels of Canadians versus
Americans? I don't know. Let's see. Happiness measures
Sure.
by country.
If you find something, send it to me. Happiness.
World Happiness Report. Let me see. A map of global happiness. Ooh, that's nice. Looks like we're about the same, according to this map of global happiness. 6.7 in the US and 6.9 in Canada.
But you are a little happier.
Just a little bit. Just
What's the happiest country according to that?
Finland.
Oh man, I wish you would. I was about to tell you. Don't say it. I want to guess. And I was going to say some sort of
Finland.
Scandinavian country.
It's always Finland. They're always the best.
Yeah. God, Finnish people.
I know a Finnish person.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. That's it for me.
Yeah.
That's all the rants I got today.
Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight.
Yes. I do love a live show. It was great to see you all. Even though we had a smaller turnout today. Yeah. You gotta go to bed. I gotta go to bed soon too.
Yeah.
Have a good night, Logan. Bye. See you next.
Bye everybody. We'll
see you at the next one.
Soon. Yep.